It was my wife's birthday last week, and somehow after her birthday party, we ended up with a giant unicorn balloon, and I'm home all alone, so I figured it was a great thing to focus my camera for this video. So, nevertheless, big week, big couple of weeks for camera announcements. We had the Nikon Z7 and Z6, their full-frame mirrorless camera, along with their full-frame mirrorless lens lineup to go with the cameras. So that's pretty exciting. I know Nikon really ramped up the marketing machine for that announcement, and it was definitely highly anticipated, to say the least. And then a couple days later, Canon released the EOS R, which is their full-frame mirrorless camera. And the specs on that look very similar to a 5D Mark IV, but much smaller in a mirrorless form factor. So that's pretty exciting as well. And as if that wasn't enough, just a couple days after that, Fuji announces the successor to the wildly successful X-T2, but they released the new X-T3, which is their APS-C sensor camera. So those are three big announcements in a very relatively short amount of time. So that was pretty exciting. I know I was definitely geeking out on specs and internet research for days. So it was definitely a good time to be had. And it really got me thinking, you know, now is the time for me to really switch camera brands. I've been thinking about it for a while. I've been with Sony for quite a few years now, and I've been really wanting to kind of, you know, shake it up a bit, spice things up, try something a bit different. But you know, I don't have endless amounts of money to just set aside to, you know, buy this or buy that from a camera perspective or anything really. And I knew if I wanted to do this, I needed to do it in a very, you know, methodical, well thought out, responsible approach. So try to determine exactly, you know, what do I need to do to make this work? And the first thing is pretty obvious, is to determine how much can you get for your current setup. And of course we all know that, but and I've always known that, but I've never actually took the time to figure out exactly what I can get for my current setup. So I went over to B&H's website and I started to plug in my information. So I put my Sony A7R Mark II, Sony 16-35G master lens, my 70-200, and my 55mm prime, and that's my main setup. And B&H will give me $2,975 for that. So let's just call it $3 grand. So I got $3 grand to spend with. And I wanted to see how much it would cost out of pocket if I wanted to move over to one of the three new cameras: Nikon Z7, the Canon EOS R, or the Fuji X-T3. So if I wanted to move over to the Nikon Z7, that's the one that's probably most comparable to the Sony A7R II. Both high resolution and that mid 40 megapixel range camera. So that would be a pretty similar apples to apples comparison. And I'll put the actual details of the lenses that I you know, would be purchasing in this hypothetical scenario. But for a comparable setup with the Nikon Z7, I would have to come out of pocket an additional $2,463 on top of the $3,000 that I already got from B&H for my current setup. So it would cost me an additional $2,500 to move over to the Nikon Z7, and I would still have three lenses to shoot with them. Now, if I wanted to move over to the Canon EOS R setup, with, you know, once again with comparable lenses, three lenses, that would cost me almost $4 grand. It was $3,971 to move over to the Canon system for their EOS R lineup. So that was that's expensive. A lot of that is the lenses, because Canon lenses, they make great lenses, but they're also a little bit pricey too. Now, if I wanted to move over to the Fuji X-T3, that would actually cost me out of pocket $800, $797 to be exact. So that's not that bad. That's definitely manageable. But then I'm moving from a full frame Sony camera to a crop sensor Fuji, and I don't really want to leave the full frame goodness, and that's definitely a video for another day. But definitely want to stick with full frame. I would love to move over to Fuji one day. I've been trying to figure out a way to make a transition over to them, whether it's for a second body or whatever it is, but for a while now, but just haven't been able to make the leap. But nevertheless, it was good for me to go through this exercise just so I could quantify exactly what it would take to move. Because in the past, I always just thought, oh yeah, I should shift brands, and that was it. I never really took the time to figure out exactly what it would cost. So in summary, Nikon Z7 switch would cost $2,500 out of pocket. Canon EOS R would cost about $4 grand out of pocket, and the Fuji X-T3 would be about $800 out of pocket. So that was pretty interesting. The next thing I was trying to figure out is the increase of, you know, the out-of-pocket cost, is it really going to justify the perceived increase in video quality or photo quality? So I went online and I got JPEG images from each one of these 3 cameras, and I wanted to kind of do a blind test for myself to see if I could figure out which one I liked the best, or which one, you know, came from which camera manufacturer. And I was pretty surprised that I honestly, I couldn't tell. You know, I went through this little, you know, mock test on myself a couple times and never got it right, all 3 of them right. So anyway, I'll pull up the images here, and let me know what you think. I'm curious if you're able to, you know, accurately determine which camera came from which brand. And leave me a comment after the video and let me know what you think. But I'll pull them up on the online, or on the video right now, and I'll put the answers at the end here. So here is the first image here, and if you need additional time, you can just pause the video. I'll wait a couple seconds on each image so you can take a look. Here's the first image, and here's the second image, and here's the final image. So all look great. You know, I had, like I mentioned, I had a hard time figuring out which one was which. So at the end of the video, I'll put the answers, and let me know how you did. Wondering if I'm not the only one that couldn't really tell. But you know, and then the final piece of all this was, I was trying to figure out, you know, besides me just wanting the best of the best and latest and greatest, what's the point of me switching brands? What problem am I trying to solve? You know, sure, I would like an articulating screen. I've been wanting Sony to come out with one for a while now, and the Canon EOS has one, but is that a $4,000 shift for me? You know, granted, their lenses are pretty good, but Sony lenses are pretty good as well. So I was trying to figure out ultimately, what problem am I trying to solve? You know, for some people, if you're gonna switch brands, you know, are you looking for in-body image stabilization because you want the ability to shoot handheld in low light situations more often? Or are you looking to start printing larger and you need a high resolution camera? You know, those are real problems you're trying to solve, and that's, you can really substantiate an upgrade or a brand switch or camera switch when you have those types of problems you're trying to solve for. But at the end of the day, I don't really have any major issues with Sony. I've been with them for a few years and I don't really have a problem, so there's really not anything I'm trying to fix with them. So at the end of the day, I'm not going to switch camera brands. Nikon Z7, the Canon EOS, and the Fuji X-T3 are all great cameras, but the substantial out-of-pocket cost and the increase in quality doesn't really justify the additional cost, and there's not really a problem I'm trying to solve either. So anyway, I thought that thought track might make an interesting video, might help somebody else out who is possibly thinking about switching brands. So that's kind of the mental, you know, story I went through in my head to determine whether or not this made sense. So hope the video was helpful for you. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. I guarantee I'll get back to you. And don't forget, leave a comment about the test results, and let me know how you did. And if you have any questions, like I mentioned, let me know. I'll get back to you. And I'm thinking there was one more thing that I need to mention. Anywho, I'm rambling. So I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you all next week. Bye.
AAA, credits alright. Hang up the phone and let your heart break on the inner lane. 24 twice. She's on the phone, but she's staying on with